Hello, everyone. Forest Focus. The season is 2 days old. Day one was a lot of fun for Nottingham Forest fans as everyone hits reset and looks ahead to Bournemouth on Sunday. Joining me to preview that game, look back on the win over Porto and assess where Forest are now under Sean Dyche is first of all Pete Blackburn. Pete, good afternoon. I'll say, how are you? How hungover are you?
I'm good. I'm sort of reliving all the great vibes of last night. I'm still very much in the happy place and lots of relief, lots of joy. So yeah, I'm good.
Good to have you with us. Good to have Kelvin Wilson with us. Kelv, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, Matt. All good, especially after obviously the result. So yeah, sunny day, sun shining, everything's good.
It is impeccably turned out in, well, I would say your cupboard's not a fair word for this, but you're in a great location, Kel, for people who are listening or watching. I mean, you're in your shoe cupboard, aren't you, basically?
It's my dressing room. Yeah, the kids are off school, aren't they? So it's the only place that they don't want to play down here. So I thought I'd come out of the way.
It's tremendous, a tremendous dressing room. Right, we'll get into it in more details, but Pete, you sort of touched on it there, I guess. Kick us off with the general vibes of last night, and then we'll get into the X's and O's of it all.
I think you sort of covered it in that intro in a sense, really. I mean, obviously the separate from the game itself and the performance, it feels like a real reset moment. I think I sort of joked in that match day vlog that we did yesterday before the game that I was sort of thinking of this as the first European home game and pretending that Michelin never happened, I guess, because all of that stuff should have been such a celebration, and the season was so full of optimism and excitement and opportunity, and then it sort of felt like a lot of that stuff was robbed from us, I think, by the way that things were handled and everything that happened with Ange and everything. So last night just felt like a clean slate. I went into the game with a real sense of hope that we could achieve something, but also just enjoying the moments, the manager coming out, the staff coming out, and having that moment between us and them as fans. And it just felt very different. It felt like, the sort of new broom had swept across and everything was, starting afresh, really. And I think the performance carried on from that. So, yeah, it was a really joyous occasion. And it was really nice to get some of that stuff back, I think, because it has been a while since we felt all of those things. We had so much of it last season, so much excitement and optimism and the sense of what we can do, upsetting the odds and all that sort of stuff. It just really felt like a clean slate, and it was just a really lovely atmosphere, a really nice evening, and it'll be one that I'll remember for a long time, I think.
It was interesting, Calv. I don't know if you saw the clip with Morgan afterwards. His first words on TNT were, I feel like I can breathe, finally breathe. I feel I can finally breathe. I'll quote him exactly. That can be read a lot of ways. People are reading it as a dig at Ange. It could be read as, the pressure on him, the pressure on the team. But did it feel like, when you see the players at the end, a weight off everyone's shoulders?
Oh, massively, yeah. His comments, yeah, it could be taken in many ways. So, it could be because of the old manager restricting him the way he played, or because he scored, is off the mark. But I think it was just the atmosphere, like Pete just said, when the management came out at the start of the game, because I was watching it on TV, the atmosphere was brilliant, and it's all ex-Forest players that are now in charge, and things like that do make a difference, because fans will read into that and think they care if they play for the club, and little things like that. I think it's just been a great appointment with his backroom staff as well, Ian Woan and Steve Stone, Forest legends. So yeah, I just feel that with Morgan's comments, it could be taken in many ways, but I don't think it was a dig at Ange. I don't think it was. I think it was more the sense of they've got to win, and he scored. So I think that was what he meant by it.
I think that as well, to be fair. I don't think it was a dig at Ange. I think it was, because I guess, Calv, sticking with you, when you're in a dressing room at a big club, and when you've been at Celtic, whether it's collectively or you personally, I guess it can feel really claustrophobic when things are going badly, can't it? Can you feel really isolated, and then you get a result and everything feels better?
Oh, massively, yeah, massively. You get so many emotions, when things are going wrong, especially with, it's been 7 or 8 games where it's not been the best start to the season at all. But I mean, the last 7 or 8 games when Ange was in charge, it was really magnified. So, it can feel horrible. Yeah, it can feel like you are all locked in a room and you fight to get out of it. And, it's not an happy place to go into it as well, and train and things like that, because, you're not looking forward to your next games. You're dreading them. Not dreading them to a degree. You're not excited for them. You're hoping more than thinking that you're going to win. You're hoping that you're going to get that first win. So I think last night, that's what he meant by it. It's just a massive weight, and hopefully they can kick on now. You know, we've got a few odd games coming up. But there's nothing better than getting a win and a clean sheet.
Yeah, we spoke on, I can't remember what day it was, Pete, maybe Tuesday, the importance of a win, the importance of a good start. It really shifts the narrative. When you look at those fixtures now, they are tough games to come, but you go into them with so much more hope. And it's obviously what Ange couldn't do, without dwelling back on Ange, but getting that early win, it just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty immeasurable to me. I mean, Kelv will be able to answer much better, I guess. And I think it's a really interesting question, what he just touched on there about that sort of difference between maybe going out hoping that you might be able to win and going out genuinely sort of believing / expecting it. I mean, that must be a big chasm, I think, a real sort of certainty about what you're doing. And I think that's what we had for large parts under Nuno. You know, I sort of look back and I think about that Liverpool game early in the season where he laid out a plan that, you know, it was probably a game plan that lots of people might not really enjoy. You know, it's we played, you know, basically a team full of midfielders clogging up the middle of the pitch and really sort of setting out to frustrate. And then we had the plan to bring on the wingers from the bench. And I always look back, or certainly did always look back on that and thought that must have been a moment where the players really bought into what Nuno was doing. You know, if I was sort of a member of that staff or a player, when you see a game plan like that come off against one of the best sides in the league, I feel like you must really start to believe in what you're being told. And that must be, I mean, there just must be an enormous difference. And I think it buys you a lot of time in the future as well, doesn't it? And that comment from Morgan, I think, is really telling. And not necessarily because of Ange, really. I think it's more a reflection of the general situation. And I think we all felt the same, like, following Forest recently and doing the podcast and all that sort of stuff, I sort of felt like I can't breathe, you know, with just the sense of frustration and disappointment and everything being very much on top of us. And now that just all feels like it's been swept away, I guess. And I think for the players and the manager, it's enormous because it just buys time, and you've already seen something that you can believe in now. You know, it's not a question of hopefully we'll see something good at some point. We've seen a team that's gone out there, played with real intent. I thought lots to buy into. I think when I saw the team sheet, I was like genuinely really pleased because a lot of me has been managing expectations about what Dyche ball might be like, and you know we hear and read so much about, you know, is it very old school or all that sort of stuff. And there's so much talk in football. But seeing that he picked Luiz and he picked Zinchenko and it looked like he was picking, you know, the most talented players rather than perhaps the ones that he could really rely on or that were really workmanlike. Not just that. It was like, I'm going to maximise what we've got here and really go out with intent. And that's how they played. So I've got no idea what the question was, but it does just really feel like a proper fresh start. And not only that, but now it's a fresh start that's already had some, you know, proof of the pudding. So, yeah, I think the players will be able to buy into it and believe, and certainly us as fans will be able to as well. I think it was just a big occasion for that, and it feels like a moment where the season can turn, and we've got a lot more to look forward to now.
When we look, Cal, at the kind of nuts and bolts in the game, what did you see from us tactically? Was there anything noticeably different, or was it just a lot more kind of hard work, intensity and buy-in and all those kind of non-negotiable type things?
No, for me, I thought looked really, really organised, really solid. And you think, how can that change within a week? You know, we've looked open, we've looked a bit all over the place at times, no idea under Ange. But then last night we looked like a team again. We looked. The main thing with me was solid. I thought we looked solid. Yeah, they had a few chances, Porto, which you're playing in Europe. You're playing against top teams. They're gonna have chances. But I thought we dealt with it well. Set pieces, yeah, it was a bit worrying at times when corners were against. I was a bit like, oh, here we go again. But we dealt with them to a degree. Still, obviously, can room for improvement. But for the first game, you know, what would Dyche would have had? What, a day and a half, if that. So I think the players, yeah, I think it's just been a massive reset, and you hope for the first game just to be a positive one, and it was, you know, like I say, winning the game and keeping a clean sheet, don't think we could have got any better. We couldn't have got a better start under Dyche. I think his style of play, yeah, everyone's been on about it, old school. But what's wrong with old school? Everyone wants to go and play this Pep way of passing it out from the back and keep possession. Yeah, it's great, but results matter at the end of the day. So if we get the results, and I think, like Pete just said, he proved his point by last night. I think, with no disrespect to Yates, because I think with his ability and what he does, he's made the most of it, and he's been effective for Forest. But the easy for Dyche to do last night would have been to put someone like Yates in, and just who's going to try and just make it solid. Probably not pretty, but solid. But he hasn't. He's gone for his flair players still, and I think that says a lot into what he's going to do.
I thought there was a good balance, Pete, between, as Kelv says, the kind of old school football, but he got Anderson, in particular, he got Louise on the ball in good areas, and they were clearly trusted to put the ball at risk, which was one of the things I kind of worried about. It would be very conservative, but it wasn't. I know we didn't create a ton of chances, and we'll get into that, but it wasn't ultra conservative football, was it?
Not at all, no. I think when you really give Dyche a bit of a chance and sort of peel away some of those like prejudices and the hyperbole and stuff, what he talks about generally really is getting the ball forward quickly and doing stuff with tempo, playing with tempo. And I mean, that's not really old school, is it? That's just perfect sense, as far as I can see. And I thought it was a really good blend last night of, looking to get the ball forward very quickly. Often long balls in the air and trying to turn the opposition quickly, but also a lot of, as Steve Stone would say, wrapped passes, which I love hearing him in his Geordie accent, demanding players wrap it constantly. It was really lovely to see that in the training video. But, a lot of those balls that are played on the ground forward very quickly and breaking lines, straight into Jesus' feet. And I think that's really what I want to see, to be honest. I want us to play with tempo and intent. And I don't think that needs to be pigeonholed as old school or whatever, really. That just makes sense to me. And I think it makes sense with the players we've got. And look, we talked so much before the Dyche appointment, because obviously we do a podcast and it's, we have to talk for hours and hours about every permutation and whatever. But we talked a lot about what Dyche might be and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things we often chatted about was, well, look, this is it's a different group of players to what he's had before. And I think nothing epitomises that better than obviously picking Anderson and Louise, but having those players at your disposal. I mean, that is a enormously high quality, high class central midfield pairing. And given that they've not played together an awful lot, really, for various reasons, I thought that you could see a real relationship between them last night and real sense of what could be. Those are two fantastic footballers. Last night I was sitting with Mark Southerns and with some guys that I hadn't met before and they weren't all Forest fans. And watching these people come to a game, having not had a backstory of Forest and not watching the games all season or last season, and watching Louise and Anderson operate, they were purring. And I hope we don't get used to that and we can enjoy it for what it is every game, because we're not going to have Elliot Anderson for long. But my word, it's just enormous. The quality of the guy is enormous. And so I think Dyche has got players here that are going to be able to fulfill that game plan of moving the ball quickly. And you saw it a lot in the performance of Hudson-Odoi last night as well, didn't you? I think there was and Dan N'Doye as well, actually. There was real intent to get the ball out to the wingers and for them to attack their man. And that, I think, is probably something we've not seen an awful lot of, probably as a result of lack of confidence, I guess. But both of them were desperate to move the ball quickly, desperate to progress up the pitch. And Hudson-Odoi had lots of sort of quarter chances, half chances, whatever you want to call them. But there was a bit of swagger about that. So, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a really good signs for a team that have had no time to prepare and against a good opposition.
I think with just going back to what you said, Pete, I think with Dyche, I think if you look at who he's managed, Burnley and Everton, you're right. He's not had players to be able to give a little bit of flair and build play up. So he's been smart with the teams that he's had, what he's managed. He's got the best out of the teams that he's managed, and he's always done a good job. So I think now he's come to a team. This will be his first club that he's managed. That he's got players where he can change his style. I think he proved last night he's not going to be stubborn like other managers in the Premier League, where this is my way, I'm not changing. Because if that was the case, we'd have just gone route one all the time and just played for second balls, but we didn't. Was keeping the ball, passing it. So I think Dyche will probably be absolutely buzzing that he's got this quality of player that he can now probably not want to prove to no one because he's got nothing to prove, but to say, right, I do like to play football as well, and we will do it because I've got the players now. He's not had the players to do that at any club that he's been at. So to come to Forest now and to be able to do that, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he's just not going to go route one and play for second balls.
No, I think you're right. I think we spoke the other, Pete mentioned it about Stephen Defoe is literally the only exception, I think, in his career when he was at Burnley and he signed him as a cultured player. So, yeah, I agree. We'll come on to a couple of other players in a moment. First of all, thanks very much to Damien McKinney for signing up for membership. Very much appreciate that. Let's take a quick word for the Trent navigation. I'm pretty sure that Sunday's game is on it's on Sky, so it should be on at the big screen. On the big screen, so you can watch it there. Also, you can go to, if you get there early, 5:30 p.m. for the Graz game, you can get a free pint of Madri, and it's £10 pizzas as well. So there's some great offers there for the Graz game. And I should say as well, I think that win lifted us to 17th in the Europa League group stage. So brought us right back into contention, which was sort of, it's quite early in the competition still. It was important to get that result. Interestingly, Midtjylland are top, and they've won all 3 of their games. So they're no mugs, but not harping back on that game. We should have done much better.
It didn't happen, Matt. We've erased that now.
Oh yeah, we've erased that from history.
It's like the Ashes test series during COVID, declared null and void by Stuart Broad, and that's how I feel about that.
Exactly. Just one more, Kelv, on the players last night. Igor Jesus and that role, I know we didn't go long all the time, but as you said, it went into him a few times. He held it up well. From a centre-half's point of view and marking and playing against him, what do you make of him as a player?
He seems is an handful. You know, he can run. He's strong. He's not. You can't just pinpoint one part of his game. I don't think you can't say, right, he's just a big lad. He holds it up, or he's quick in behind. He can do pretty much all of it, you know. He can obviously score a goal as well. I know it was a penalty last night, but he can score. He's proved that. So yeah, I think he's just been great every game that I've watched him play. To be honest, I think he's been a really positive signing. It's still early in his Forest career, so he's only going to get better. I think. Obviously, you've got Chris Wood to come back in, but just Chris Wood is an automatic starter nowadays with Jesus. I think that Chris Wood's been brilliant for Forest. You know, he's been unbelievable. But I just think that Jesus brings something a little bit more. You know, I think Dyche will use them both at different times. I think Chris Wood might play a little bit more when we play away from home, especially in the tougher games. Because Sean Dyche, I don't think he's going to be silly where he's going to think we can always play and always do that. He is old school, probably like that, where we will. Away at Man City, Liverpool, these teams, let's just get the ball forward. If we lose the ball in their half, then we're okay, we're set. So I think in them kind of games, we will play Chris Wood. But I think if Jesus comes in and plays, I'm more than comfortable and happy with that. I think he's just been a great signing so far. And he seems hungry, he seems he wants to try, he seems he wants to get in positions. He's not moaning if the ball's always up around his chest. He's not saying that he wants it in behind all the time. It's however the ball comes, he'll deal with it, and he gives his all. So, yeah, I think he's been a breath of fresh air, to be fair.
How he utilises Chris Wood, Pete, in the next few months is going to be really interesting because at Burnley, I might be wrong, but it always felt like he was a bit of a focal point battering ram. Under Nuno, it felt like the attack was built for him to score for us. So how Dyche utilises Wood, whether it's 20 minutes off the bench, I don't know, but is he going to be the focal point, or is he going to be the one where this might be a question for Kel because Pete's dog is barking. You might have to steal that. Kelv, how do you think he will use Chris Wood? Will it be low crosses in the box, or will it be you are the focal point, hold the ball up for us?
I think it might be a bit of both. I think my personal opinion, I think it might be that he'll be holding the ball up away from home, tougher games. I think he will play. I don't think he's just going to be a 20-minute man just coming off the bench here, there, and every. I think he will start a lot of games because Chris Wood's shown that he's not just that as well. He can run. He's not sharp. Chris Wood isn't sharp. You know, he's not going to suck a defender in, then spin him and getting him behind. He's not going to do that. So I think away from home, the top six, as they say, I think Chris Wood will come to the style of play that Dyche wants to play, and he will play probably more. But that's not saying that he can't play against the other teams as well. I'm not saying that, but I just think that's where he'll get utilised the most when we are under the cosh, and we do need to get it up to someone who can hold it up and get us up the pitch a little bit. I think Chris Wood will be the man for that.
Just two quick ones for you, Pete. We won't know the answer to this for a while, but how the strikers shape up in general, as well as said here, Callum Wendo and Taiwo. There's that point. And also, just to quickly mention, we can't really forget that Porto are no mugs. I know we said this last night, but they're not. Portugal isn't the greatest league, obviously, but they have an absolutely blinding start to the season. We shouldn't really play down their quality, I guess, should we?
No, I think they're a genuinely very good side. I think, some of the stuff that we and others spoke about before the game in terms of, they've won 10 out of 11 games and all that sort of stuff, that's probably not that helpful in terms of assessing the opposition, because it's just, it's an enormously different league, isn't it? And much less competitive in the most part of the games. And I think, Paul Morley was saying that, they drew with Benfica last time out, I think. And, that's the Benfica side that got turned over by Newcastle. Was it Newcastle?
Yeah.
So that might tell you a bit more about, the standard and stuff. But look, they've got really good players, quite a few that were in my ridiculous recruitment document that we still never really talked about very much before the season. And they're a proper side. And I think Dyche said after the game that he was really pleased with how little opportunity we allowed them, really. And I think, there's a few moments, as Kel said at the start, about set pieces where it was a little bit hairy. And I think some of that is probably the sense that we've all got, the sort of the trauma of sit.
Is Pete frozen? Yeah, you're still there, Kelv. Well, we can't help that. Not to worry.
Yeah. Mate, on that, I think is he back? You back, Pete?
I'm back. Look, this is honestly my recent form on this podcast is horrendous. I embarrassed myself in front of Perchy on Monday or whenever it was, because everything was a mess. The doorbell was ringing, the dog was going mad, and now my entire internet just turned off for 30 seconds. So I don't know. Sorry about that. I'm letting myself down a bit at the moment.
You're okay. Carry on, Kel.
I think on Porto, we talk about the leagues and stuff that some of these teams play in, and it's not the strongest of leagues. Porto didn't. Let's take nothing away from Forest or Porto last night. It wasn't a game where, we won. It was a great start, but we played a really poor side. They were poor. I thought Porto were decent last night. They kept a lot of possession of the ball. No, they didn't create a lot, but they weren't a poor side. Far from it. So I think, you can look at the leagues all the time, but these teams that are in Europe, they're pretty decent sides, and Porto's a well-established European team. They've won the Champions League. What was it, 15? I know it seems a long. It's not really. So I just take nothing away from Forest. It was a great result, and not that they beat a bad team. They didn't beat a poor team. They beat a good side.
No, they do have good players. Samu, the striker, he's only 21. He's got 3 Spain caps already, and he's a very, very talented forward. And he didn't get any change out of Murillo or Milenkovic all day. So, I thought that was really encouraging. James, thank you very much. £10 for Pete's Wi-Fi. Now I'm duty bound to send it
you
to
are. Don't be hoarding that for yourself and your big cash reserves, mate. I need that.
But appreciate that very much. Thank you very, very much indeed. Just on our attack then, Pete, I think a few people have said, well, it's 2 penalties. We didn't create a lot. Partly true. I thought we created a fair bit. But he's only had one training session with them. So I'm not sure what people can really expect.
Yeah, I looked at the stats this morning, and I think we had XG open play of sort of 0.22 or something along those lines. But I don't think that doesn't feel like the story of the game to me. And I looked at the highlights again this morning, so I wasn't just Just remembering whatever hazy memories I had last night. But I felt like we played with real intent, as I've said before. And perhaps the moments that we created, a lot of them were probably Hudson-Odoi being really direct and getting shots off. They're perhaps not the sort of moments that are really captured in the stats, I guess. But it felt to me like we were much more of a threat than those numbers suggest. And also felt to me like we limited them to very little. So look, no, I'm not discouraged at all by a lack of creativity or anything. I thought we played with real intent, and it's very, very early days. The truth is that these players, they've not actually played together that much, because a lot of them are new anyway. They've also only played together under circumstances of real difficulty, where things have been hard recently, and it's not been an environment to grow and to bond and to develop. And that stuff will all come, I think. I personally, whether it's just me being sentimental or romantic or, sort of overemphasizing the relief of last night and the sort of the joy of a new management team and all that sort of stuff, personally, I thought it was really encouraging. And while the stats might suggest we didn't have an awful lot of clear-cut chances, it felt to me like we were pushing a lot. We were having moments of real value, and that most of all, it felt encouraging for the future. So, I'm pretty happy, to be honest.
I think so. Nomad, thank you very much for 19 months membership. Appreciate that very much. We did make them look pretty ordinary, but they are a good team. On that attacking point, Cal, I think I saw you nod along there. I mean, Ange made the mistake of saying, I'm going to reshape this whole attack in 1 week. With one training session, surely Dyche was right just to focus on make us solid, and attacking form and patterns will come in time, hopefully, won't they?
100%. I'm sure Dyche would have, with one training session, he probably would have just done a few set pieces, worked on them, telling players where he wants them to be, who's the zonal markers, who's picking up players. That's all he would have done. I don't think he would have even done shape. I don't think he would have. He might have walked through a little bit. I think his biggest job and his staff's biggest job would have been having a laugh, having a bit of a five-a-side game, getting everyone's spirits up, pulling players one-on-one, telling them how good they are. I've been watching you. When we played you, you was one of the danger men. Just blowing smoke up the backside a little bit to just get the confidence back into players. And that's good man management. And I'm sure that's what he would have done with one training session that he had before a game. So I don't think it would have been much of his own style put on it as such. It would have just been more man management work of telling players, trying to get the confidence back, reminding them. Might have even got a few clips from last season of when they were flying and put a little, reel together and let them watch that and just go, and that's what you are. That's what you need to get back to. Don't forget that. It's little details like that for a play. You come out of that meeting room and you're like, wow, yeah, we are. Come on, we can beat these. So it's just that. I think that would have just been his man management that game. I don't think there would have been a much tactical part played in it, to be honest.
Just a side point, Pete, before we look ahead to Bournemouth. Obviously, Cal's right, put a smile on players' faces. The club's media was conspicuous by how it sort of felt like a collective effort to put smiles on faces by pumping out content of players actually looking happy and work on the training ground. And for whatever reason, we didn't see that in the previous 39 days. So it felt like a collective kind of therapy session for everyone in that way, didn't it?
Big time, yeah. Sometimes, I probably like to think of myself as being a sort of thoughtful football fan on occasion, but my word, I was just lapping all that stuff up. Staring at my phone or my computer, hoping for another clip of Woney and Stoney doing the shooting drills or whatever. Look, I think Sean Dyche has got things very, very right since he's come in, and. The thing I find a bit mad about it is that it's not that difficult. Like, he is a good speaker, right? And he's a charismatic bloke. He's very comfortable talking, which not everyone is, and that's fine. But it's actually really not that difficult to say some of the stuff that he has. And Kelv talked about messaging, and I think that's been an enormous positive. He said, I think, in pretty much all the interviews he gave before the game and the pressers and all that sort of stuff, he really went out of his way to say, I was watching last season and I was proud of what the players had achieved. It was a hell of a journey. And he made a point of, referencing that. And he said that he'd spoken to the players and told them how much he admired what they'd done. Some of that stuff is so easy, isn't it? It's really not hard to come to a new football club and tell people that you're proud to be here and honoured and all that sort of stuff. And you should be as well, like not just Forest, but anyone. It's a real privilege to be in a role like that, and it just doesn't feel like it should be hard to communicate that way. And I get it's different for him because of the connections and all that sort of stuff. But you use whatever you've got, don't you? And I said before, I think probably before Ange was sacked, maybe after, I'm not sure. The thing that I found most mad about the whole Ange situation was that he never did a press conference or any messaging where he just said, you guys have been really impressive and now we're going to go on to a different level. It's going to take time because I'm going to make big changes here, but we can do something brilliant together. I've seen what the fans can do. I've seen you carry the players over the line, all that sort of stuff. And as a group of players, enormously talented group, I think that we can play football with real swagger, all that sort of stuff. Just some positive messaging. But instead it was just, I don't want to bang on about the past, I get that, but I just can't believe sometimes that you would miss those opportunities to speak to the fans and speak to the players like that.
The thing about that, though, and I didn't know Ange personally, so I'm not going to say. I spoke to a lot of the Celtic lads about him in the past, and they nothing but good things to say about him. But this is just based on Ange. This is my experience with managers, and I played under a hell of a lot. You think that a lot of players have got big egos. Trust me, managers have bigger egos than. Sometimes it's embarrassing and frightening. But Sean Dyche has always come across to me, always from his Burnley days, from Everton, always come across as really down to earth guy. No ego there, just tells it how it is, and that's how he's come across. And but going back to it, like I said, it's easy. Pete said that managers, it's easy thing to do is go and get the fans on side, say all these, but some of them don't. It's like my way, that's all it's going to be. Don't care about what's happened before. I'm gonna put my stamp on it now, which is fair enough. You're confident in doing that, but you've got to say the right things and you've got to come across the right way. But trust me, I'm not going to name names, but there's a few managers out there who egos are, oh God, I've never seen anything like it.
And Gail, thank you very much for membership. 4 months, appreciate that. Very good of you. And everyone else who signed up for membership lately, lots of people. It's great. Do join us on the Discord server. Lots of fun chatting about the games and everything there, all things Forest. So yeah, that's a great addition to what you can get with membership. Just one other thing on first impressions with managers, Kelv. How important is that first meeting, first impressions? Do they last or can they be changed? What's your experience of that?
Yeah, the massive first impression on a manager, his first meeting, his first chat with the players. Yeah, they're massive. I think as soon as that manager has the meeting and he walks out the room, straight away, all of you start chatting about him. Oh, what do you? He seems all right. He seems this. Oh, we're gonna, the first impressions are massive. Yeah, it's probably one of a manager's biggest jobs is his first team meeting, his first getting together with the players, how he comes across. I've commented on managers have massive egos and there's a lot of arrogant ones out there. Again, as soon as they walk out, you say, he's having himself a bit, isn't he? He's having himself, he is. And straight away, you're on the, not back foot with him, but you're a bit like, I've got a 3-year contract. I've got to be here with him for 3 years. You do have these conversations, you're only human. It's just like anyone in a normal job. If he meets a new manager comes into the workplace and he's, strict. You're dreading it. Same with a teacher at school. You dread it when a new teacher comes in if you come across strict. So it's the same with a manager. But yeah, I think that's probably for me when you're managing such talented players like Dyche has got at Forest and they've shown what they can do. I think a lot of it's just going to come down to my management. Of course, it's going to come down to tactics and the style of play. But I think with Forest, if you get all the players with confidence, they've shown what they can do. Last year wasn't a fluke. It wasn't anything like that. It was consistency and every player in form. And that only comes with confidence when you get confidence. And that comes from loving the manager and the manager. I've watched some videos this week of Nuno in the change room dancing with the players and stuff last season. That's brilliant. Players, you love that. He's one of you. The gaffer, you want to go and do it for the gaffer. For yourself, firstly. Secondly, I don't want him to get sacked. I want him to stay around. He's getting the best out. I play my best football under this guy. So all these little things might not seem big to fans and to other people. But as a player, yeah, if you get a manager that you can relate to and he understands, and he's just his man. If the man management's good, I think you're halfway there as a manager. That's my personal opinion.
Kel, were there any Forest managers who just left that immediate positive first impression and had you really up for it?
Yeah,
if he's Billy.
So, yeah, Billy when he came in. I think it was a long one because Billy loved the long. But I remember him going out and he had a laugh, but Billy was strict. But I remember lads say, "Well, we can stay up here," because we was in a relegation battle his first time coming round. It was like, we can stay up here, and we ended up staying up. And then I remember the following pre-season, we believed we could go up. It was like, we're going to go up. His meetings is like, we'll win this league. We'll do this by Christmas. We'll be here, and we believed it. And the thing with Billy, he always said things. He said things like, in the 67th minute they'll blow up when we used to play teams with video meetings. It'd be like 67th minute they'll blow up. We'll go on and win the game 2-0. And I can't. And you could ask a lot of the other players at that time. He got it right near enough to a T every single time. That's how much he would analyse games, watch, and see when these teams blowed up, like throughout 10 or 15 games. So when a manager does speak and he's proofs and he's putting in what he's saying, you believe it and you buy into it and you're on board.
Lovely stuff. 460 people with us, which is fantastic. Do us a favour and hit like if you haven't already. People telling us in the chat to stop using certain turns of phrase. I'm sure it's well intentioned. It doesn't really help because it gets in your head, because I've got them as well. So I'm sure it means well, but you're not really doing us any favours trying to put out a good product for you. But appreciate the intention. Right. Before we go to a break, Pete, give us just your early thoughts. We'll move on to Bournemouth now. Just your early thoughts on that game, and then we'll break it all down.
Well, I'm an awful lot more optimistic about it now than I would have been had things not changed recently, that's for sure. And not just for sort of vibes-based reasons, but also because I think the Sean Dyche style of looking to progress the ball very quickly, perhaps long, perhaps over the top, not necessarily all playing through the press, gives us a much better hope against Bournemouth. You know, it's well documented that this is a team of like enormous intensity. They'll put a lot of pressure on. They'll press hard. I love what they do, but I think it gives us a much better chance if we're prepared to move the ball quickly and perhaps, you know, long as well. To be honest, against them, I think we would have. I would have given us almost no chance of getting a result, to be honest, under the previous manager. But now, who knows? I think it's doable. Having said that, they're probably as good as they've ever been under right now, I think, despite all that change. And I think that's both the mark of a football club that's doing things right, but also the manager who is clearly very, very high class and inspirational and very likable as well. The fact that they're still doing it and still doing it so well, having, you know, had the whole defence ripped away and losing a lot of good players is, I think, pretty remarkable. So I do really admire them. But yeah, as I say, I go into this game with genuine optimism that we'll be organised enough to cope with, you know, what they throw at us, but also that we will have a game plan and the tools to counter what is an impressive pressing regime and everything. So I give us actual hope of it now. Which I think is pretty exciting.
Just before we get into the game a bit more then, and I'll ask Kelv a couple about the quick turnaround and things like that, but just before that, a word for Home Move Estate Agents, a property to show you this week. This is Marco Island, Huntington Street, Nottingham. If you're listening, not watching, click the link in the description. But it's a one-bed apartment. It's on the 8th floor, so you'll get good views out over Nottingham. It's on the market for £85,000 to £95,000, and Ben from Home Move says it's a great first-time purchase or investment for someone netting 8.9% yield. Maybe you're a former Nottingham Forest defender who is looking to dip their toes into the property market. I don't know. It could be for you, but check out the link in the description. Has it ever dabbled in property, John Dublin style, Kelv, or not?
I've got a couple of properties, yeah, but not looking at the minute, but yeah.
What a question! He wasn't expecting that today.
He wasn't expecting that. He could have batted it away and said that looks nice, but he's gone straight in there. Sorry, I put him on the spot. Last night I put Sam Collins on the spot and asked him how he takes penalties, and then he said, "So if he's taking a penalty next and the keeper's watched it, then I've done him no favours and I've stitched Kelv up there terribly. So sorry about that." Kelv, back to actual football. How much of a factor is the quick turnaround for us in terms, especially with a new manager? And we've spoken about the lack of training sessions. Is that going to hinder us in that sense tactically or not?
Not tactically, but I think physically it's going to. Yeah, Bournemouth haven't played, have they? You know, and they're flying. It's the best they've ever been in the Premier League. You know, what I've seen them, they look an unbelievable side this year. The pace that they've got through the team as well. And we've just played, obviously, on a Thursday night. So it's not ideal. Definitely not ideal. And then it's Bournemouth as well. It's what, a 3-4 hour drive. So it's not just around the corner as well. You're sitting on a coach for X amount of hours. So, no, it's not ideal at all. As a player, they'll probably wake up this morning stiff, thinking, oh, God, we've got a game on Sunday. But, you know, recovery things that they've got nowadays, they had it in our days, but were really good. You know, your ice baths, your masseurs are on tap whenever you want them. They've got all the right things to recover quick, the right foods, the right drinks that they will be given by the nutritionists and things like that. But I think this is probably one of the toughest games to go in off a European game. You know, Bournemouth, who are absolutely flying, it's going to be a really, really tough game.
Especially as well, Kelv, because they're so intense, aren't they, Bournemouth? It's like, of all the teams you don't want to play off the back of a European game, Bournemouth away feels like it would be right, apart from the obvious, it feels like it would be right at the top of the list, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think in every sense, Matt. Like I just said, I think the travel down, you don't want that. And then how they play, they've just got so much pace through the side. They're relentless, a tight little ground. You know, the fans are on top of you. It's going to be, the atmosphere is going to be, even though it's a small ground, it'll be really loud, and Bournemouth won't be silly. They'll know Forest played last night, and their manager will be saying, "Quick start, just get after them, get after them." They've had a full week to go and prepare for the game. So these are the downfalls of being in Europe, I guess. I think if we had a good start to the season, we probably wouldn't be talking about it as much, but because we need points now. Last night was obviously the Europa Cup, but we need it. The bread and butter is the Premier League, and as much as every game matters, these games matter more so, especially with where we are and how we've been. So yeah, it's not an ideal. It's probably the worst game we could have asked for. I think even above, your Arsenals and your Man U's and your Chelsea's, etc. I think Bournemouth are just a team that are absolutely oozing with confidence as well. And just like I say, with the pace that they've got, and after we played on a Thursday night, lads might be a little bit leggy, but Sean Dyche, again, is very experienced. I'm sure he'll set up just maybe a low block and, absorb it and try and get on the counter-attack.
I think so, which makes team selection interesting. So I'll put a possible team up and then see what you think about it, Pete, but I'll just read it out. So this is what I wonder what we'll do, but we'll ask about how physically up for this players are. But Sells in goal, Savona, who came on and did a very nice job, I thought, at right back, Milenkovic, Murillo, Williams, Douglas Luiz and Anderson, and then Undoy, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi and Igor Jesus, which is basically the team that did so well, Pete. But Dyche didn't make many changes and he made them quite late. So do you think he will roll this team out again, or will he just players like Douglas Luiz and Callum Hudson-Odoi, the ones he might need to wrap up a little bit? Do you think he'll do that or not?
Well, this is early stages of a new relationship between us and the manager, isn't it? And we just don't know right now how he'll operate. So it's going to be really interesting to see over the course of the next few games to what extent there's rotation, people being given chances. My instinct, and it is literally just that, is that he will want that team that starts on Sunday to be as close to the one that started last night and played most of the game. Because I think all we've really got right now is the sort of chance to start building those bonds and those relationships under his style and all that sort of stuff. And change makes that difficult, doesn't it? And I think that's partly part of the sort of what we saw under the previous manager. There's an awful lot of change for understandable reasons. I don't really have enough of an insight into the sort of sports science side of things, or indeed just being an athlete, to know how the players will be feeling and to what extent it is possible for them to go again. I guess the player that you probably have the biggest question over would be Douglas Luiz. I think we know that he's sort of has to be carefully managed physically. So whether there's a question over his place, there might be, I think. And to be honest, I don't think it would be a bad thing for a Yates or maybe Dominguez to play in this game. I think we're likely to have not an awful lot of the ball in the middle of the pitch, to be honest. So having someone in there who's maybe more of a battler probably wouldn't be a desperate problem for me. And I think I underestimated the quality of Douglas Luiz, to be honest, and I think he could be pretty enormous for us. So I would be cautious about him, I think. And the other thing I just want to ask Kelv, to what is there an extent to which the players will be sort of carried over the line in a game like this by the sort of new feel good, by the atmosphere, the sort of change in positivity? Does that impact much in terms of taking away the sort of the legginess and things?
I wouldn't say so. No, I wouldn't say so, Pete, to be honest with you. I think in this scenario, I agree with you totally, Pete, with Douglas Luiz. I think Dyche was probably looking into it anyway last night. I think that's why he brought Yates on for him. Give Yates, 5-10 minutes to basically say you're going to start Saturday. So, have a little run around, get your legs going, get a feel for the team. So that would be one that I won't be surprised. Ideally, this would be the team. I agree. Don't change a winning team. But like you say, Douglas Luiz has just come back from injury as well. You probably have to wrap him up in cotton wool a little bit. But I think Yates might come in there for him. A lot of it will be down to Sean Dyche as well. He'll be pulling players, asking them how they feel. There will be a lot of data as well from the sports science guys. Of course there will. But that managers did it with us. They'll pull you. How do you feel? Are you okay to go again, or are you feeling leggy? And they don't really say it in a sense where they're pressuring you to play. They were like, don't try and be the hero. It's a team game. If you're not right, and you're going to let us down a little bit because you don't feel you're up to pace, or you can cope with it, just let us know and we can put someone in there who can do it. So they do talk to you in a way where you feel comfortable to say, you know what, yeah, I'm struggling, Gaffer, to be fair. So he'll be having chats, he'll be pulling players. I think the back four will just pick itself. I think that's going to be the back four, as defenders as well. Not so much fullbacks, but it's two centre half. You don't run nowhere near as much as everyone else, so you should be pretty much okay. But yeah, for me, I think Douglas Luiz and Hudson-Odoi would be the only ones that you probably look at if we leave. But I think Douglas Luiz will probably be a cert, not to play, not to start, shall I say. But it will come down to that. He will pull the players and ask them how they're feeling. No matter what the sports scientist guys say, he will grab them and just say, how are you feeling? You feeling leggy? Are you okay? So a lot of it will go off that.
I saw Gary in the chat asking about Zinchenko's injury. We're recording this just before 1 o'clock if you're listening, not live. And Dyche's press conference is 1:30, so we'll have a fitness update on him. But it didn't look good. I can't imagine Dyche, can't imagine Zinchenko being involved. That said, Pete, Savona did do well, but it feels like the key area of the pitch, a key battle is Semenyo versus whoever the right back is, because he is absolutely on fire this season, isn't he?
Yeah, it's an awkward one, really, because I don't really know if we've got a method of responding to that. I mean, the sort of obvious thing, if you had more players available, would be to put Nico over there, because that he's just so reliable. I thought he was brilliant again last night. He works so hard, and he must be such a pain in the arse to play against, because he's just always there. I love watching him play football. Yeah, the easy thing to do, I guess, would be to make that change and have a very good one-on-one defender and someone who's not going to give Semenyo any room to breathe. But I don't think we've really got an option to do that unless you play Barato at left back, and I think we've seen that that's a bit of a nightmare. I really don't think he wants to be doing that. I don't really know what the alternative is, to be honest. I mean, it bodes well in the sense that I thought that was Savona's best performance for us, pretty convincingly, to be honest. I'm still, I think the jury's out a little bit, generally speaking, but I thought he was much more impressive last night, and fair play as well, because it's not, it might be an easier scenario to come into when you're doing relatively well and things seem a bit more positive, but it's still a pretty big occasion for a bloke who's come from another country and European match with lots of pressure on it. So I thought he did really well. That was nice to see. The only other really option you maybe have is Jaya Cunha could play there, but I'm not sure it's really helping necessarily, because he's a big guy, and I don't think pace is really his sort of forte. So I'm not really sure if you've got an alternative option. Under Ange, we talked about maybe Dominguez could play fullback, but I don't think that's really going to happen now. So yeah, I think you probably just have to play Savona there and hope that you can get bodies around him to support as much as possible. And maybe Yates being in the team would be helpful with that as well.
That's what I think. So. I think they're going to go either put Nico over there to match him up on one-on-one situation. But if that isn't going to be the case, I think they'll stick with the boy at right back, and Yates will either get told to play more at that side to double up, especially when they've got the ball, or our winger on that side will have to drop further back in and just basically just say sacrifice you going forward as much for this game. You're going to have to sacrifice that side of your game and do the defensive side. It's going to be a shift for you. And I'm sure, again, Dyche will be, his man management. That comes down to the man management, because a lot of players, when they get told they're playing in a different position, not their own one, or they've got to do something, they do spit the dummy out. They do. It's just a fact. But the right manager, Billy Davies, again, sorry to keep going back to him, but he was brilliant at it. He would make players believe in, yeah, all right, yeah, I'll do it for you, Gaffer. Yeah, no problem. So it's just, that's going to be the case, I think. If Nico stays on the left and you've got Semedo down that side, the opposite side, he's going to need help, the boy, at right back. So he might have to nullify the winger going forward so much and just tell him to sacrifice that side of his game for Sunday and just help your right back. Or Yates again. Yeah, every time we lose the ball, when they've got the ball, look where Semedo is. Be in the distance. Don't go and mark him, but be in a position where you can make that, but you also can play in your position. So he's been half and half. But again, I don't know if he'll do that, because, he might want to just make sure we're solid in the middle of the park. Because again, Bournemouth, not just looking at one player here, they're a really good side. So I think he'll just price the winger going forward, I think, and just double up on him.
The other option potentially, I guess, under Nuno, what we might have seen is Dominguez playing, and
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, while Kelv was talking, that sort of struck me that I think that's how Nuno would have dealt with it, and just essentially have him as another guy either tucking in to give us more bodies in midfield, or doubling up on that right hand side. So that's an option. Also, this year we've seen more of Morgan playing out there, haven't we? And I guess another option could be that he does that sort of job, because that he's got the work rate, and you perhaps bring in another body in midfield, whether it's Dominguez or whatever. So yeah, there are probably options. Ultimately we've got what we've got, and this is Savona's chance, really, I guess, to grab the shirt and make a bit of an impression.
Yeah, I saw Tom in the chat mention Dylan Bakwa, who I'm sure could do that up and down role. If people watch that,
he's injured, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He missed the game through injury, so he's probably not going to start this one. But if people watch the Sean Dyche masterclass video, his wingers do have to do a lot of up and down work regardless, but especially in a game like this. So I think Dan and Doy and Dylan Bakwa are going to thrive in this. And I got dug out a bit in the comments just questioning whether Amari Hutchinson will, because I just don't know if he is that kind of winger. We'll have to wait and see, because his previous football clubs have been Chelsea and Ipswich, where it's very different kind of football. So maybe he does it. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not down on Amari Hutchinson. I was the one who wanted us to sign him. But just he's one of those players, quite a few. It'd be really interesting to see where they fit in this whole jigsaw in the next few months. Just as we wrap things up then, Kelv, any final thoughts? Anything you want to add on where we're at as a club, or on this game, or anything else?
I'll just probably say, it's a great start last night for Dyche. I think his presence, I think, has just lifted the club. I think he's he's been a breath of fresh air. I'd just like to say to the fans, Sunday's going to be a really tough game. It's going to be a really tough game. We're all hoping we get a result. Me more than anyone. if we can go there and win, God, I think I'll just catapult the confidence into the players to kick on. But it's easier said than done. So I think, regardless of the result, hopefully we do get something. But, I'm always cautious. I am, and always looking on the other side. If it's not, don't press the alarm button straight away. Let's take into consideration the game Thursday, who we're playing on Sunday, and it's a short turnaround. So don't start judging too early, and don't be so downbeat if things don't go our way. That's the message I'd like to say to the fans.
Yeah, as I agree fully. As mentioned, Bournemouth are a top team, and we do have an opposition preview, by the way, that's out tomorrow, and more thoughts on them and how they're doing so well and whether it's sustainable. So I'll put that out tomorrow, today for members, so do check that out. Pete, anything from you before we go?
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, Kel's absolutely bang on. I think if you could come away from Bournemouth with anything points-wise, then you've had a phenomenal weekend, to be honest, especially given the context of the games are coming thick and fast. No panic whatsoever. There's absolutely no shame in not being able to beat a side who've been, arguably certainly one of the best 2 or 3 sides in the league this season, an incredibly impressive team. And just the other thing I just wanted to say, I don't know if Matt Ford is watching this or not, and I'm not sure how many people have watched the podcast you did with him. If you haven't, I'd recommend that you do, because it will give you a pretty inspirational perspective on all things life and death. And so, I just wanted to say I hope all is going well with the procedure and the recovery and everything. And best wishes from everyone in the podcast, I guess.
Yes, do watch the Matt Ford pod. It's probably had the best feedback we've had on almost any episode. So, and he messaged last night. He's had his surgery and it went well, and he was able to watch the game, which I think was a big priority for him. So do check the 4D podcast out. Over 500 people with us, which is great, because we were streaming last night up till 11 p.m. And then there is a vlog out featuring a moderately drunk Pete Blackburn, maybe slightly more than moderate. I would say an even more drunk Paul Morley, and then beyond that is way off the scale is Paul Morley's dad, who was frankly leathered in the pub at about 1:45. I'm
sure Paul Morley's dad was drinking non-alcoholic beers. I don't understand. Tell you what, though, speaking of Matt Ford, I in homage to the great man, I lived the Matt Ford dream of 10 pints of Bass in the Nav last night. And I can tell you it's every bit as joyous as you would hope. So
you must be suffering today.
No, I'm good. I have this thing sometimes where when you have these moments in life where things are suddenly going really well, it just overrides everything. And I just think the sort of relief and joy of being back at the City Ground and it being special again has just meant that I can't really feel any bleakness today. It's just such a change, because I came away from that Midtjylland game and the sort of horror of being at the City Ground when you're really struggling, but most of all when the fans have turned and it gets really nasty. It was just so grim, and it was so far away from the brilliant bits of Forest that we've had over these recent years. And we talked a lot about it, and I've always sort of worried in the back of my mind that at some point we'll get used to it and we'll become entitled, and these times don't last forever. But to have a little bit of that back last night and some of those special feelings was just absolute magic. I can't feel anything apart from joy today.
Well, check out that vlog. It's gone down very well, I'm sure. Any regrets, Kel, that you're not a 10 pints of Bass man and you live like healthy? I can't imagine there are there?
I do like a pint. I will say that. I do like a pint, but 10, I wouldn't be on here if I had 10 last night.
Well, at least it mitigates all the nonsense that I'm talking today. There's a good reason for it.
Did you have your pre-match nap, Pete, before we go? You set an alarm and then you were in what?
No, I tried, but I was too excited about talking about the game, so I just sort of lied there thinking about everything. But yeah, hopefully my wife will give me some sympathy today, and I might get a little nap in later.
She's not going to. Right.
She's very good at this stuff. She's very understanding and kind, so she probably will let me. Maybe she's mad. She's probably also mad. She's married to me.
Right, just before we go, I don't know if I've already done this video. I can't remember. Do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe, consider membership or Patreon, or a lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify would be great. As mentioned, opposition preview tomorrow, and then post-match show with Mark and James Belshaw on Sunday, and then back on Monday to break it all down. Kelvin Wilson, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, especially after a good result.
When was the last time? It was obviously Brentford was the last time we had a good result. That was 2 or 3 months ago. Unbelievable.
How long does that actually feel ago, though? Like that, I almost feel like that's like a past life. It's crazy. How much has happened?
Oh dear. Pete Blackburn, thank you very much.
Thanks. Absolute pleasure. Real joy today. Onwards and upwards, you Reds.
Onwards and upwards indeed. Thanks very much, everyone. If we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.